Om Namo Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Do you all want me to use this thing? You tell me.
I think
Or
does
don't.
Does it connect in there? Oh, it doesn't?
It's just the speaker.
It sounds about the same.
Well, I don't think you've heard him use it.
Oh.
Now, do you want me to use it?
That's kind of nice.
So, plot twist. Today we'll take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 17, Text 20. Hiranyaksho Nujas Tasya Hiranyaksho Nujas Tasya Priya Pritikrit Anvaham Priya Pritikrit Anvaham Gada Pani Divam Yato Gada Panir Divam Yato Yuyutsu Mrigayan Ranam Yuyutsur Mrigayan Ranam Hiranyaksho Nujastasya Priya Kriti Kuranban Anbaham Gadapanir Divam Yato Yuyutsur Mrigayan Ranam Hiranyaksho Nujastasya Priya Priti Kradanvaham Gadapanir Divam Yato Yuyutsur Mrigayan Ranam. Others, please. Please. Synonyms. Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha. Anuja, younger brother. Does that sound familiar? Not you. Does that sound familiar at all? We hear it in the names of different personalities. Indranuja. Who's Indranuja?
Great Vaishnava?
Ooh,
Little Vaishnava.
a little. Anuja means younger brother. So who is a younger brother of Indra? Amana. Yeah? Amana? Yeah. Or Ramanuja. Two possible answers to this one. Ramanuja. 3. Yeah? Now that I think about it. 4. Anyone will do. Come on, let's get them all. Anuja means younger brother. A younger brother of Rama. Lakshman. Any others? Krishna. I did not expect that. That was a trick one. Because Balaram is referred to as Ram as well, right? Any others? But Lakshman, Krishna, Shatrughna and Bharat. So, Anuja, younger brother. Tasya, his. Riya, beloved. Pritikrit, ready to please. Anu aham, every day. Gadapani, with the club in hand. Divam, to the higher planets. Yata, traveled. Yuyutsu, desirous to fight. Mrigayan, seeking. Ranam, combat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. His younger brother Hiranyaksha was always ready to satisfy his elder brother by his activities. Hiranyaksha took a club on his shoulder and traveled all over the universe with a fighting spirit just to satisfy Hiranyakashipu. Isn't that sweet? Responsibly, please. His younger brother Hiranyaksha was always ready to satisfy his elder brother by his activities. Hiranyaksha took a club on his shoulder and traveled all over the universe with a fighting spirit just to satisfy Hiranyakashipu. Purport. The demoniac spirit is to train all family members to exploit the resources of this universe for personal sense gratification, whereas the godly spirit is to engage everything in the service of the Lord. Hiranyakashipu was himself very powerful, and he made his younger brother Hiranyaksha powerful to assist him in fighting with everyone and lording it over the material nature as long as possible. If possible, he wanted to rule the universe eternally. These are demonstrations of the spirit of the demoniac living entity. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim jatkripa tamahang bande Shri Gurun dinataranam Shri Chaitanya manobhishtam sthapitam yena bhutale Svayam rupa kadamayam dadati svapadantikam Pancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhobhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hiranyakshanajastasya priya priti kuraranvaham Gadapanir divang yato yuyutsur mrigayanranam. His younger brother Hiranyaksha was always ready to satisfy his elder brother by his activities. Hiranyaksha took a club on his shoulder and traveled all over the universe with a fighting spirit just to satisfy Hiranyakashipu. So we know how powerful Hiranyakashipu was. For all practical purposes, at least as far as his estimation went, he was immortal. He performed severe austerities for a very long time, severe austerities for a very long time. And so Brahma, the creator of the universe, the first person in the universe, had to come to satisfy him, to grant him a boon. That's why we perform austerities. Right? We go to school. I remember when I was in high school, 8:15 to 3:33. I can't still for the life of me figure out, almost 60 years later, how it is. Why 3:33? But anyway, there it was, 8:15 to 3:33. We were in school all day, going from class to class. And then we had homework. Oh, then we had the clubs and stuff after school, right? Clubs or rehearsals for musicals or some stuff like that. Or sports, or whatever it was you did. All that stuff you did, partly for fun, partly to add lines to your college application thingy, whatever, I don't know. Homework, oh my gosh, the homework, sometimes. All so that we could get into a decent college. And then, all you want to do, you're a teenager, you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and all you want to do is have fun, right? But you got to go to classes. You got to do so much homework. What did we tell them? Count on 3 hours of work outside class for every hour spent in class. I think that was the formula that we gave our students. So much austerity. Why? So you can become wise, right? No, so you can get that job. And you can get in the car and drive 2.5 hours to that damned office, and if you're lucky, sit in your cubicle all day and into the night. If not, if you're not lucky, it's an open office plan, and you got to hear and see all the stuff that's going on with everybody else in the office all day long. All that noise, all that distraction. And somehow or other, you got to do whatever it is you're doing. And then you got to drive 2.5 hours back. And of course, you're very satisfied by the work that you were, Jayadvaita Maharaja and Ram Das and I were discussing this yesterday afternoon. And of course, you're very satisfied by the work you've done all day, right? When you get home, you feel like $1 million. No, you got to slam back a couple of scotches, doubles, right? Just to kind of like blur the agony from the day. And then you watch some television or whatever people do nowadays. I guess you still watch television. Watch stuff on a television anyway. And then you crash. You get up and you do it all over again. And somehow or other you make it to Friday. And then you completely waste your weekend. Or get wasted on your weekend. And then you go back and you do it all over again. And you hope you get those 2 weeks vacation, right? Americans, but you know, maybe we get the 2 weeks vacation. Europeans, they get 6 weeks of vacation, guaranteed, paid every year. Not all Europeans, but many, many, many European countries, France and so many others, Italy, I guess. Of course, then they're out when everybody else is on vacation, so all those south of France beaches are crowded and whatever, or the mountains, mountain resorts, or whatever it is you do. And this brings me to something that I remembered yesterday. I think I might have mentioned it before here. My least favorite poster advertising higher education, right? Justification for higher education. The big McMansion on the hill with the garage with 6 cars that cost as much as some people's houses each. And that's the whole thing. That's why you're slogging. That's why you're putting up with those professors in college and spending all that money on those textbooks. Don't even get me started on the college textbook racket. And all that stuff. So we can get a job, so that we can, well nowadays, when our folks were working, old people's folks, I have to keep reminding myself I'm an old person now. When our folks were working in the 40s, 50s, 60s, into the 70s, you know, a lot of them, they would work for the same firm for the whole time. And they'd get some nice pension when they retired, plus their Social Security. And I remember, I remember one job I had. This was a job that I got so that we could make money to go to South America to establish Krishna consciousness in Peru. And it was a job in an airplane factory. And I had a second shift job from 3 to 11, sanding airplane fuselage. Not sanding, but you know, we used Scotch-Brite. Really, not like the green scrubbies that you get, but a coarser Scotch-Brite. I guess it was like the purple Scotch-Brite stuff, which I had never experienced before. If only we had had Scotch-Brite for cleaning the pots at the temple, but we didn't. And when I remember when I started the job, the guy was boasting that, you know, I've never missed a day of working. I've been working here at Convair for 30 years, and I've never missed a day of work in my life. I love it here so much. And then there's the vacation place in Julian, and then you get this really nice pension when you retire. And I just thought, God, somebody take me back and shoot me now, please. I mean, I knew I wasn't there for the long haul. I knew I was there for just a couple of months so we could save up enough money that we might be able to live in Peru for a few, a couple of months, 2-3 months until we figured out how to do that, whatever we were going to do there. So this is their whole life, and this is how most of us exploit the resources of material nature, right? And anything beyond that is simply beyond us, beyond our imagination. Because that's all there is. And we bombard ourselves with all kinds of entertainment. Radhesha's not here. Any Spanish speakers here? Anybody know the Spanish word for entertainment? Or diversión. I always loved that. After I became a devotee, I remembered one of the words for entertainment. The most common word that I heard in the early 60s when I studied Spanish was diversión, diversion. It's a distraction, right? It's all about distraction. So you got the elevator music going. Apparently to make it less painful to be in an elevator with 11 other people that you can't, well, that you either don't know or can't stand for however long it takes you to get to your floor. And then you've got the music at work. Somebody, there's always, especially if you have I don't know what they do with an open office plan. Where I worked, we didn't. We had cubicles for the part-timers when I taught at San Diego State. Nobody played music because we weren't going to impose our musical tastes on anybody else. There was a lot of conversation there. But it's all about distraction. It's all about distracting us, and then you get home and you watch the sports. Monday night, you got the Monday night football and the Wednesday night football and Sunday afternoon, you got all the games. And, like a whole fridge full of brews and whatever. And then you're building up to the Super Bowl. This is the extent of our enjoying the material nature for most of us. We're not even halfway decent demons. Hiranyakashipu's stated goal was to rule the whole universe forever. That's why he got that boon to make him immortal. And because he wanted to rule the whole universe forever. He conquered all the Devatas. Very powerful. We'll hear a little bit more about his power over the next few verses. His and Hiranyaksha's. The power that he conferred, he kind of shared, he empowered his little brother Hiranyaksha. And Hiranyaksha, the little brother, he's only too happy to please his big brother. Right? We idolize our big brothers. I remember one of the times I left the temple in 1970, I ended up back in San Diego, and my mom thought I was going to be a good influence on my brother, who had dropped out of high school and had gone back. I guess he was taking night classes to get his high school diploma or something like that. And she thought, Bill will be a good influence on Lenny. He's a stable guy. Never mind all the trouble that I had been in the previous year, but she thought, Billy will be a good influence on Lenny, and it'll be good. And then one day Lenny disappeared. And he left on his bed one of my back to Godheads with the temples up the West Coast checked off. Laguna Beach, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. And I just thought, oh no. Lenny's dropped out of high school again. And it's to follow my footsteps. And it was. He ended up living in the Laguna Beach temple for a few weeks. I think until they suggested that he cut his hair. And then he came back, and I just thought, oh. Anyway, so this is our deal. We want to satisfy the big brother. We want to satisfy those. We want to please those we look up to. But what we need, Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai, is someone to look up to who has a better goal than Hiranyakashipu's. Because this whole project is doomed to failure. Even if he gets to control the whole universe, he can't do it forever. Even Brahma doesn't get to be Brahma forever. People who get to Satyaloka, they get to go live on Brahma's planet, they have very long lives. Maybe eternal in our frame of reference, but not really eternal, because when their pious credits wear out, they have to come back down here to the mortal plane. So this is all doomed to failure. We've talked over the last week, 2 weeks, about the whole, what the contrasts between the demonic mentality and the godly mentality. But what we need is someone who has a better project, who has a better goal than what Hiranyakashipu had. Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj wanted a kingdom bigger than his great-grandfather's. And his great-grandfather is Lord Brahma. How do you get a kingdom bigger than that? Well, the Lord figured out a way. He actually gave him an eternal place to rule over, but couldn't plan it. So, but that's a result of bhakti. So, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, their project was doomed to failure, either in the short term or the long term. It's not going to last. But one of my mantras is, Krishna sums up the whole material experience in 2 words in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Anybody remember? Dukhalayam shashvatam. It's not so much fun, and it doesn't last. Just doesn't last. Is there a little fun? Maybe. A little thrill here and there. But so much other stuff to go with it. And then it's over. Life is short, then you die. Life's a drag. I'm trying to euphemize the bumper sticker, right? Life's a drag, then you die. That's kind of the bumper sticker version of Dukhalayam Shashvatam. That's our whole experience. But the godly mentality, on the other hand, is how do I engage everything in Krishna's service? This is another thing we were talking about yesterday. I was recalling a conversation with an old devotee friend of mine, who is under the influence of another sampradaya, bona fide philosophy. And this devotee was telling me, yeah, well, that philosophy is even better than ours. And I thought, oh, wait, how's that? I said, their philosophy, one way you can characterize it is that everything is Krishna. They use the gold and gold mine kind of thing, right? So everything is Krishna, so it should be engaged in Krishna's service. What's our philosophy? What's the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva? Everything is Krishna's. So it must be engaged in Krishna's service. Not should, must. Because it's Krishna's. Otherwise, if we try to use it for our own satisfaction, then we're just thieves. So the godly mentality, that's a project that lasts. We see that in the Bhagavad Gita. Stephen gave a nice class the other day among the devotees getting ready to give Bhagavad Gita classes. He gave us a really nice class on the verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. This is a completely different thing from bhakti, completely different thing from everything else. We see it throughout the Bhagavatam. One of my favorite places in the 5th chapter of the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, where Narada Muni contrasts bhakti, where he contrasts the subject of Srimad Bhagavatam, which he is exhorting Vyasadeva to put together, with everything else, with Vyasadev's whole other project, all the Vedas and the Itihasas and the Puranas. And he says, nonsense. No, worse than that. He calls it Jugupsitam, detestable, by comparison with the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, because it distracts people. It distracts people. It makes us wonder, should I pursue that goal? Should I pursue that? Because there's something for everybody in the Vedic literatures. There's something to encourage everybody's kind of faith so that they can become a little elevated by following the injunctions of the scriptures. So, if you read the Mahabharata, who's the star of the Mahabharata? Ultimately, it's Krishna, right? And I read a novel. A novel that purports to show the Mahabharata through Draupadi's eyes. There are actually 2 novels like that. One was written in the 70s by an Oriya woman, and then the more recent one, maybe in the early 2000s, by a Bengali American writer, very famous writer. And the story is, it begins, of course, with Draupadi's appearance in the fire. Kind of a striking description. And throughout, there's Krishna, but at the very end, we see that Draupadi's whole life was really all about Krishna. And anybody who has known me for very long knows that as many times as I have read that last chapter, and I've shared that last chapter of that book with so many devotees, I did it just recently. I can't remember with whom. And I thought I could keep it together, and it was impossible. I started crying even before I usually do. Maybe in anticipation of what was, I don't know. But I couldn't, I can't get through, because it just, the whole story just builds and builds and builds, and all this stuff is going on. And finally, Draupadi is lying there in the snow, her consciousness withdrawing from her body, and the last thing that happens is Krishna. Krishna comes. And he says, I've just been waiting for you to call for me. Taking you long enough. And then she realizes that he has been the one stabilizing factor, the one constant, the one love in her life throughout her entire short, exciting, well, maybe it's a long, exciting life because she had grandchildren. But, and every time I read that, I just fall apart. It's apparently not ever going to be possible for me to read. And this lady's not even a devotee, but somehow or other she's able to convey Draupadi's love for Krishna. And what kind of love did Draupadi have? Anybody? Pop quiz.
Unconditional.
Who?
Unconditional.
Okay. Yeah, that of course.
Motherly?
But of the different flavors.
Was it motherly? Friendship?
Friendship. Draupadi was in a relationship with Krishna in friendship. We see that in Nectar of Devotion. We see that throughout the Mahabharata. She had a relationship, she was one of his Pura Sambandhis, one of his Pura Sakhis, a friend, city friend. So this is the godly mentality. Everything's about Krishna. So my conversation with this devotee, I said, in this conversation with this devotee, I said, Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is that everything is Krishna's. Therefore, we must engage everything in Krishna's service. So that's how we're trained. This is the definition of Uttama Bhakti that we get at the beginning of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? To actively engage in behaviors that are intended to satisfy Krishna. The intention's the whole thing, right? That's the discussion that we see at the beginning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishna got some pleasure from killing Kamsa, but Kamsa didn't engage in bhakti, because all the stuff he did wasn't, his intention wasn't to please Krishna. So Jiva Goswami warns us against overextending the idea of pleasing Krishna. And he also warns against underextending it, right? Because what Mother Yashoda didn't please Krishna, at least externally, because he threw a hissy fit, he threw a tantrum, freaked her out, right? She figured she chased him with a stick to threaten him, and needed to catch him to tie him up, because otherwise he was throwing such a fit that he could go hurt himself somewhere. So she had to tie him up. But that's bhakti, because the intention was to please Krishna. She put him down because that special milk from the best of their cows who grazed in the best grasses on Govardhan Hill, just so that Krishna would not go around and raid all the neighbor ladies' pantries. That made this whole arrangement. And why did Yashoda have to do that? Why didn't she have her staff, domestic staff, take care of the milk? Everybody was busy setting things up for the Indra Puja. The whole village was just bustling to get that ready. So this is why Krishna had a little thing for Indra later on. And he convinced them to ignore this guy. So I want you to feed everybody. I want you to feed the snakes and the dogs and Vrindavan, the ants, everybody. Just one person. Don't feed. One person must be neglected. Nothing for Indra. You see that in Gopal Champu. Nothing for Indra, he says. So this is the art of work, right? Is that we use our senses, we use everything that we're able to, contact with our senses to give pleasure to Krishna. Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam. Engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses. That's bhakti. And that's something that's different from everything else. So Srila Prabhupada says, that's the godly spirit, engaging everything in the service of the Lord. And that project is never finished. And that project is always satisfying. And when we find ourselves not satisfied, that means that we're somehow or other we're thinking about ourselves, our own smaller needs. Sometimes they need to be attended to, but when we're engaged in Krishna's service, when we're actually immersed in Krishna's service in a good kirtan, good japa session, when we're actually really immersed in doing an arti, there's nothing. Those are, we want to create transcendental flow states. Flow is a mental state where the activity that you're engaged in, one is one that you enjoy. Two, you're engaged at a level that's challenging to you. Not going to break you, but forces you to completely focus. Music is like that. Dance is like that, right? That's what you look for. You want to become immersed in the dance, rock climbing, a good wave. Where's Jai Gopal? Oh, he's probably looking for a good wave. A good wave is like that. When you get on a good wave, we were just remembering that the other day. There's nothing else going on. There can't be anything else going on. You've got some good overhead wave that's, anyway. But so we want these kind of transcendental flow states when we're engaged in Krishna consciousness. Being asked to give a class at the very last minute, there's nothing to do but do that trust fall, right? Just depend on Krishna. So that's there's a contrast between the mentality behind the demoniac and the godly behaviors, and the results as well. So the results of the demoniac, materialistic behaviors. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about the materialistic demeanor. This foreword to the Brahma Samhita. The materialistic demeanor cannot stretch to this transcendental plane that we're going to hear about in Brahma Samhita. So that's what we want. We want that kind of flow state that's completely beyond all the materialistic endeavors. Even those that are meant to take us to Swarga, even those that are meant for attaining liberation. Bhakti is something completely different. Okay, beyond time for me to stop because we have a meeting, I'm sorry. Quick questions or comments? Going once, twice? Thank you so much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.